Since retiring last year, there's a lot of things about my lifestyle that have changed, mostly for the better. I'm still figuring out the structure piece and like having a reason to put pants on in the morning, but I'll figure that one out. But a big part of these lifestyle changes have happened around my spending habits. And I'll be honest, I've never been someone who is a huge spender, and that is predominantly why I was able to retire early. But even in the last year, since moving from someone who is primarily working to someone who is no longer doing any of that, there are at least 5 to 10 things that I see absolutely no reason to spend money on ever again. And I thought I would share them with you just in case you are currently thinking about your post-retirement budget. A lot of things do change, especially as it relates to values and what you want to spend money on. So here's a few to consider. Now, the first one is pretty Captain Obvious. I never spend money on expensive clothes anymore. That is something I ditched actually a good 5 to 6 years ago when I started predominantly working from home. And I used to buy my clothes from Nordstrom, J. Crew, those sort of places where you would on average spend like, I don't know, $70 to $100 on a pair of dress pants and maybe $50 to $70 on a blouse or a shirt appropriate for work. I never, ever spend that kind of money on clothes anymore. And I'm not shaming anyone who does. For some of us, clothes is like art, and the way we dress ourselves is the way we express ourselves. I would say that's true of me too, but the things I want to express are freedom and mobility and just having the day to myself. And as a result, I end up wearing a lot of t-shirts from Target. So that is the first thing that is completely gone from my budget. And you might be surprised how much money you're spending on clothes now if you work in an office environment or somewhere where you have to wear certain things. That just goes away and frees up so much money for more important things, in my opinion. And to that end, another thing that I do not spend money on anymore, and I did this for many years and I've just completely given up, I don't spend money on expensive face creams. The amount of money that women spend on skincare is incredible to me. And I'm not suggesting that I have like the most amazing skin for an almost 56-year-old, but what I have realized is no matter how much money I spend on actual lotions and potions, my skin kind of tends to look the same. Except for one thing, which I will get into a bit later. Wine over $20. I don't know about you, but I do not have a palate for expensive wines, and I am so glad for that. I will happily enjoy a bottle of Trader Joe's wine and be completely content with it, because to me, it tastes the same as any other bottle of wine on any shelf. Now, I will say if we're going somewhere for dinner or we're bringing somebody a bottle of wine for a gift, I never cheap out on those. I don't think like an $18 bottle of wine is cheap by any means, but I will spend a little bit more on wine that's intended as a gift. But for myself and my own like wine consumption pleasure, usually it's like J-Lore, or I also love Wente, which is the winery we got married at in California. But again, they're all under $20 and chef's kiss in my opinion. Let's talk about expensive jewelry and watches. Now, for men, I know you don't have a lot of options and a nice watch can be like your signature item, knock yourself out. And then for women, there's all kinds of things that we can adorn ourselves with. But I've personally never been one to want a lot of like diamonds and things like that. I do have a beautiful engagement ring and wedding bands, but I will tell you this, if I ever lost my engagement ring, I would not replace it with a real diamond again. There are just way too many other beautiful options out there, from beautiful gemstones, or if you like the look of a diamond, I think there's like moissanite. There's also lab-grown diamonds now, which are much less expensive than the real thing. And here's my hot take when it comes to diamonds. If you're wearing something really big, I am going to assume that is probably not real. Even if it is, that just is where my brain goes. So that's my take on diamonds. Now, I didn't always feel that way. I was very excited to receive mine 20 years ago, but looking back, we probably could have spent that money a better way. Another thing I never spend money on anymore, and I don't think I've bought one in the last maybe 5 to 10 years, are purses. I mean, expensive purses, cheap purses nonetheless. I have a couple of Kate Spades that I've bought at outlet malls. I think I spent maybe $100 on them at the time. I never wear them. I never use them. They sit in the back of my closet. I prefer just wearing like a simple crossbody bag where I have a few things that I want to carry, like my phone and my wallet. And aside from that, I don't need to carry anything else. Okay, one more thing that I used to spend a lot of money on, but now I never do, are books. And I used to have an Audible membership. I think I might still have it actually, but I never use it. I prefer to get books from the library, and I do it digitally. I have not stepped foot in a library in about 10, 20 years, but now you can get these digital memberships where you can download audiobooks or ebooks. And if you don't like it, then there's just no guilt about stopping reading it and going on to the next one. I used to collect books like nobody's business, and I do like to move quite a bit, and there's nothing more of a pain in the ass than to move around a bunch of books from one house to another because you know you're never going to read them again. The damn things are heavy, and nobody else wants them either. So I never spend money on books anymore, even though I am still an avid reader. Now, some of these things are, as I mentioned, related to retirement, and some of them have just become a little obsolete in my life. But there's one more thing that I don't think I will ever spend a lot of money on anymore, and that is a fancy car. I have never driven fancy cars, and if you ask anybody who's known me for a while, I used to drive the craziest beaters you could possibly find. I had a Hyundai Pony where the muffler was literally tied to the back of the car with a pair of pantyhose. I had really bad cars, but I did finally get a fancy car when I moved to the Bay Area. I got myself a convertible BMW, and let me tell you, I enjoyed that for about 1 month, and then it quickly became something I resented. Not only because I had to put premium gas in the car, which is much more expensive than regular gas, but also I became just a lot more aware of where I was parking. Is my car going to get scratched? Is it going to get broken into? And I realized I hated that. So even though I haven't returned to driving beater cars, I do drive a 10-year-old paid off Ford, and I absolutely love it. So those are the things that I am no longer buying, either because of the stage of life that I'm in or because I'm retired. However, there are things that I am actually spending more on in retirement or plan to spend money on. And even though that list is short, it's really important. And one thing I do plan to spend more money on in retirement is art. And I don't really spend a lot on art. To be honest, the framing is always more expensive than the art when it comes to me and my purchasing experiences. I either get it from some random place, like this beautiful piece here, a friend of mine actually painted, and she did a collaboration with Z Gallery where they did a bunch of prints of this painting. And this is the demo print that she had, and I got that. And a lot of other pieces in my house are either prints that I've ordered or they're paintings that I've purchased while on vacation or on a trip of some kind, or they're pieces I've inherited. So a few pieces are from Northern Ireland, Sam McLarnon. If you're from the area, you'll know who he is or who he was. I have 3 of his paintings, and to me, those are family heirlooms. I never really thought of myself as an artsy person, but for whatever reason, I really enjoy having art in my home. And every time I look at it, I'm reminded of where it came from, either the person who painted it or the place it came from, or the experience I had when I bought the art. So that is something that I plan to continue investing in just for my own pleasure. Another thing I plan to continue doing is buying courses or lessons, whether it's pickleball or painting, anything that AI can't teach me directly. I am fully willing to invest my money in building new skills. I've started dabbling in watercolor, and there's some great watercolor artists out there who have their own courses. So I'm happy to buy those to learn a few techniques and also support the artist. And it's a nice way to spend time. And the last thing I will always spend money on is Botox. As I mentioned earlier, you can spend $1 bazillion on skincare, and I don't really think it will ever move the dial the way Botox does. It just gets rid of the crow's feet and the 11s. And mind you, I haven't had it in a little while, so probably need a refresh, but I love me some Botox. And if that's not your jam, totally cool, but I think it's money well spent. So those are the things that have changed in retirement or just as I've gotten older in terms of my values and the reflection of my values and how I want to spend my hard-earned money going forward. So I'm curious if any of those resonate with you or if you have your own ideas on what you spend more on or less of in retirement. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.